Welcome back, survivors. I'm glad you could join us tonight. If you're enjoying these stories, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give this video a like to help boost the signal. And as always, drop a comment with your city or country. I love seeing where you're all listening from. Morning always started the same way for me. Coffee so bitter it stripped the sleep off my tongue, paperwork on the dashboard, and the low rumble of the van's engine shaking the steering wheel. I liked that rhythm. It meant normal. It meant the city was still standing, still hungry for groceries, still paying people like me to keep its cupboards full. I rolled out of the depot just before sunrise. The loading bay lights blinked out behind me, leaving a haze of orange over the rooftops. The van was packed tight, bottled water, canned beans, dry pasta, the usual panic-proof supplies for people who didn't know they'd need them yet. The radio chattered about traffic patterns and the week's heat wave. Same anchor, same jokes. I drove east on 17th, my reflection ghosting across the windshield as the sky brightened. The air smelled of diesel and bakery bread. For a while, it felt like every other shift. My first stop was a condo tower downtown. I parked beside the service door and pushed a dolly stacked with boxes through the lobby. A guy in pajama pants opened his door, signed the tablet, barely looked at me. Behind him, the TV flashed a red ticker, something about disturbances in the Midtown Mall. I caught a few words, violent, unprovoked, under investigation. Then the elevator doors shut and carried me back down to the street. When I climbed into the cab again, the talk show had turned serious. The host's voice was calm but tight around the edges. Authorities urge residents to avoid central districts until the situation stabilizes. Static swallowed half the sentence. I turned it down. Probably another social media rumor. Last year it was tainted spinach. Before that it was the flu that never was. The second delivery was to a corner store I'd been supplying for years. Mr. Harris, the owner, usually met me with tea and complaints about inventory software. Today he was outside the shuttered doors, cigarette trembling between his fingers. "You hear what's happening?" he asked. "They say people are attacking strangers. Biting." I laughed because I didn't know what else to do. "Biting? Like animals?" He nodded, eyes darting up the street. "Police shot one by the bus terminal. My cousin saw. A siren wailed nearby, cutting him off. We both turned toward the sound. Nothing visible, just the echo bouncing between buildings. I finished unloading the boxes, signed the manifest, and climbed back into the van. My hands smelled of cardboard and fuel. I told myself the man was just nervous. Everyone was. This city fed on rumors. By the time I reached Roosevelt Avenue, traffic had swollen into a slow-moving knot. 2 ambulances screamed past in the opposite lane. People on the sidewalks had their phones raised, filming something down the next block. I couldn't see what it was, just a cluster of movement and the metallic snap of panic traveling through the crowd. At 8:05 a.m. my phone buzzed. Company alert. Deliveries suspended. Stay with vehicle. Await instructions. First time in 10 years they'd ever sent that. I decided to top off the tank before heading home. The gas station was nearly empty. Pump 3 hummed beside an abandoned sedan with its door hanging open. I slid my card, watched the numbers climb. The air felt heavy, like the stillness before a storm. Then I noticed 2 figures across the street. At first I thought they were drunk, stumbling, leaning into each other. One fell hard, the other dropped to its knees beside them. A second later, the one on the ground started screaming. I froze. The other bent forward, jerking, and I realized the sound wasn't pain, it was tearing. My stomach turned cold. I backed into the cab, locked the doors. The radio crackled to life again. State of emergency declared downtown. Citizens are advised to shelter in place. A white van blew past in the opposite direction, the driver pounding on his window, shouting something I couldn't hear. I started my engine. The hum steadied me, routine, just routine. I told myself to breathe, to think. Maybe a riot, maybe drugs, maybe anything but what it looked like. As I merged onto the service road, I checked the rear view mirror. The 2 figures were in the street now. One limped, The other ran straight toward the sound of my engine. The radio dissolved into static. I pressed harder on the accelerator. The city was waking up, and it felt wrong, like a heart beating too fast, one step away from collapse. Somewhere deep in my chest, I knew it. Whatever this was, it wasn't stopping at downtown. The van rattled over the cracked asphalt as I left the gas station behind. My hands were sweating on the wheel. Every noise outside sounded sharper than it should. Sirens in the distance, then the hollow slap of something hitting metal. The city's morning hum had twisted into a kind of animal breathing, short, panicked, uneven. My phone kept vibrating with alerts. One from the company, stay off main routes. Another from the city, emergency broadcast, seek indoor shelter. Then a text from Lena, my sister. You okay? I thumbed back a quick reply, on the road. Heading home soon. The little delivered checkmark never showed. I cut through the industrial district, past a row of warehouses and closed repair shops. People were running in the distance, small dots at first, then close enough for me to see the terror in their faces. A man stumbled into the street, waving his arms. His clothes were soaked dark down one side. I swerved, barely missing him. He pounded the side of my van as I passed. Don't go that way, he shouted, voice raw. They're killing everyone. I didn't look back. A minute later, the radio erupted into chaos, dispatch chatter, screaming, then silence. When it came back, a calm female voice was reading an evacuation list, her words clipped and mechanical. Quarantine zones established in Midtown, Riverfront, and the East Freeway. All civilians remain indoors until further notice. I laughed out loud, a sharp, nervous sound. Indoors? Half the city lived in one-bedroom apartments. The infection, or whatever this was already outside. The traffic light ahead blinked red, dead. A line of cars had piled up in the intersection, doors open, hazard lights flashing. No people, just echoes. I swung right onto 29th, taking a narrower road that cut toward the old freight line. That's when I saw smoke rising from downtown, thick, black, oily. The skyline looked like it was burning from the inside out. I told myself I just needed to reach the bridge, cross the river, get to Lena's neighborhood. Easy. The van had half a tank left, a few crates of bottled water, and more food than I could carry. I'd always joked that if the world ended, at least I'd have snacks. It didn't feel funny anymore. A few blocks later, I spotted the gas station I sometimes used on my night routes. Its big glass windows were smashed. A police cruiser sat sideways at the curb, lights still flashing. One officer was inside the car, slumped against the window. The other door hung open. No sign of the partner. I slowed just long enough to see the blood trail leading into the mini-mart, and then movement. A figure staggered out, arms jerking like a puppet's. Its mouth and chin were dark red. It saw me. Then it ran. I floored it. The van fishtailed for a second, tires screaming, before gripping the asphalt again. The thing, person, whatever, hit the back panel hard enough to make the cargo rattle. Then it was gone, tumbling off the road as I sped away. I didn't stop until I reached the overpass. From up there, the whole city spread below, columns of smoke, tiny dots of fire, the flash of sirens zigzagging like fireflies. I could see crowds gathering near the main freeway, a sea of headlights that wasn't moving. For a second, it looked almost beautiful. Then I realized no one was driving. Cars jammed bumper to bumper, horns blaring without drivers to lean on them. I gripped the wheel and whispered, "What the hell is happening?" The radio answered me with static and fragments of panic. Containment failed, multiple bytes, repeat, containment failed. The bridge entrance ahead was blocked. 2 military trucks across both lanes, soldiers waving people back. One of them stepped into my path, hand raised. I stopped. He shouted something I couldn't hear through the glass. I cracked the window. "Turn around," he yelled. "The district's closed." "I need to get across," I said. "My family's on the other side. Bridge is sealed. Go home. Lock your doors." He looked over his shoulder. Someone screamed behind him. The soldier turned, and then something leapt from the side barrier, slamming into his back. More followed, pouring out from the shadows of abandoned cars. I didn't wait. I threw the van into reverse, tires squealing. The image of the soldier's helmet rolling across the pavement burned into my eyes. As I backed down the ramp, a woman ran into my headlights, waving frantically. Blood streaked her shirt. 3 kids trailed behind her. She slammed her palms on my hood. "Please, take us." Behind her, figures were coming fast, too fast. I hesitated only a second before leaning over and popping the passenger door. "Get in." They scrambled inside, breaths ragged, eyes wide. The youngest clutched a stuffed rabbit. I gunned the engine and took the service road along the river, the kids crying in the back, the woman whispering prayers under her breath. For the first time that morning, I understood I wasn't making deliveries anymore. I was running a rescue, or maybe a funeral procession. I don't remember how long I drove after that, just the noise. The kids crying, the woman gasping between prayers, the thump of the van bouncing over potholes. Every sound stacked on top of the next until my head was filled with it. I kept both hands tight on the wheel, eyes flicking between the mirrors and the road. Anything that moved out there looked like a threat. The woman told me her name was Dana. She worked at a hospital uptown. The little boy and girl were hers. The older one, a teenage girl, was her niece. They tried to drive out earlier, but the bridge was sealed before they got there. "People were fighting in the street," she said, voice hollow. "The police shot someone. They didn't stay down. I didn't ask for more. I didn't need to." The service road along the river was mostly clear, lined with warehouses and loading docks. A few miles down, a barricade of delivery trucks forced me to slow. Smoke poured from one of the cabs, blackening the sky. I eased the van between a pair of overturned crates and rolled to a stop. I needed fuel. The gauge was flirting with a quarter tank, and the city behind us was still burning. If we got stuck out here, we were dead. "Stay inside," I told them. "Lock the doors behind me." The boy started crying again. Dana nodded, holding him close. I stepped out, keeping my wrench in one hand, the closest thing to a weapon I had. The heat hit me like a wall. The nearest warehouse door was open, a big metal maw yawning into shadow. Something about it felt wrong, too quiet. Still, I crept closer. Inside, the air smelled of oil and rust. A radio hissed from somewhere in the dark, a voice looping the same emergency message. That's when I saw him. A man crouched beside a pickup, his hands slick with grease. He looked up fast, eyes wide, a wrench raised like he was ready to swing. "Whoa," I said, holding up my hands. "Not looking for trouble." He squinted at me, then lowered the tool. "You're not one of them?" "Not yet," I said. He laughed, a dry, shaky sound. "Name's Ramon. Mechanic here." Everyone else ran when the sirens started. I stayed to grab tools and fuel. "Any of that left?" "Couple cans." "You got a car?" "Van," I said. "Loaded." That got his attention. His gaze sharpened. "You trying to get out?" "Yeah." He nodded once, decisive. "Then I'm coming with you." We moved fast, loading 2 gas cans and a tool bag. As we worked, I kept listening for the shuffle of feet or that awful, wet growl I'd started to associate with the infected. Nothing yet. But the silence felt heavier than noise. Back at the van, Dana flinched when she saw Ramon. "Who's that?" "Someone who knows engines," I said. "We'll need him." She didn't argue, but her eyes said she didn't trust him. Ramon climbed into the passenger seat and scanned the dashboard like he was cataloging it. "Take the service road south," he said. "Freeway'll be packed. I know a back way through the rail yard." We followed the cracked asphalt past graffiti-stained freight containers. The city thinned out, buildings turning to open lots. For a few blessed minutes, there was nothing but the sound of the tires and the low hum of the motor. Then we saw the ambulance. It was sideways across the road, hazard lights still blinking. The windshield was shattered. One of the back doors hung open, smeared red. I slowed automatically. "Don't stop," Ramon muttered. "Someone might be alive." I said. "Someone might not be," he shot back. But I was already stepping out. Some part of me couldn't leave it alone. Not yet. Not while there was still a chance. The air reeked of fuel and copper. Inside the ambulance, Two bodies lay slumped against the cabinets. I checked for pulses out of habit. Nothing. Then a faint sound, soft, wet breathing, from the far corner. A woman in scrubs, barely conscious, her hands shaking as she reached for me. "Help," she whispered. "Please." A name tag read Sienna Alvarez, EMT. I lifted her under the arms and half-carried, half-dragged her to the van. "Dana, open the side door. She's alive," I said. "We can't just—" A new sound cut me off, a low thudding, like someone pounding metal. The back of the ambulance began to rattle. Ramon saw it first. "We gotta go. Now." I shoved Sienna inside and jumped into the driver's seat. The thudding turned into a roar. Something slammed against the side panel as I hit the gas. We tore down the road, dust and smoke trailing behind us. Sienna groaned in the back, clutching her side. "They're spreading it fast," she murmured. "It's in the blood. The bites," her eyes fluttered. "Once it hits the brain, they're gone." "How long?" I asked. "Minutes." The van went silent after that except for the engine and the sound of the kids crying. I didn't look in the mirrors. I didn't need to. I already knew what was chasing us. By the time we reached the river district, the sun was high enough to bleach the color out of everything. The air shimmered with heat and smoke. What used to be a skyline was now a jagged silhouette behind a haze of burning fuel. Sienna sat up in the back, pale and sweating, her arm wrapped in a strip of gauze. I didn't ask what the wound underneath looked like. Dana sat beside her, holding her youngest close. Ramon rode shotgun, his eyes scanning every street, his hand resting on the handle of the door like he might bail out at any second. We followed the service road until it bent south toward the main bridge. For a few minutes, I thought we'd actually make it. Then the line of stopped vehicles came into view. Hundreds of them. A wall of steel and glass stretching from one end of the overpass to the other. People were everywhere, some shouting at soldiers, some crying, some just sitting in their cars with their hands over their faces. The military had set up barricades at the far end, Humvees across both lanes. I slowed the van. Ramon cursed under his breath. "Turn around," he said. "We can't," I answered. "We need to know if there's a crossing open." A soldier waved us forward, his uniform streaked with dust and sweat. I rolled the window down halfway. "Where are you coming from?" he asked. "Midtown," I said. "Trying to get out of the city." He shook his head. "Bridge is sealed. Containment order. You'll have to shelter in place." "There's no place left to shelter." He hesitated, then leaned closer. "They're calling it a viral event. Whatever it is, it spreads through bites, through blood. We've lost 2 units already. Get your people off the streets." A voice crackled over his radio, fast, urgent. He turned away, listening, and I caught fragments. "South checkpoint breached, multiple infected." When he looked back at me, his face had changed. "You need to leave. Now." Then the crowd behind us started screaming. I twisted in my seat. Down the ramp, a wave of people was surging toward the bridge. Civilians, hundreds of them, pushing and clawing to get through. Among them, I saw the way some moved. Too fast, too wild. The infected. Gunfire erupted. The soldier spun away, shouting orders. I threw the van into reverse and hit the horn. "Hold on!" We tore backward down the ramp, weaving between abandoned cars as bullets cracked overhead. The rear window exploded, showering the seats with glass. Sienna screamed. "Go, go, go!" Ramon shouted. I cut hard onto a side street, the van fishtailing before gripping pavement again. Behind us, the bridge was chaos, the crowd breaking apart as the infected slammed into them, the soldiers firing blindly, smoke blooming from a grenade launcher. We didn't stop until we reached the riverbank, an old access road beneath the bridge. I parked behind a rusted shipping container and killed the engine. For a few seconds, nobody spoke. The only sound was distant gunfire and the ticking of the cooling engine. "They're not stopping it," Dana whispered. "They're not even trying." Sienna was staring at her blood-streaked hands. "Containment won't work." I saw it at the hospital. One patient turned, bit 2 orderlies before anyone reacted. Within minutes, the entire ER was chaos. "The blood splatter alone," she stopped, swallowing hard. "It's exponential." Ramon rubbed his face. So what now? The bridges are sealed. Freeways blocked. We can't head north. That's where it started. South, I said automatically. We follow the river and find another crossing. Maybe a service bridge. Sienna shook her head. They'll all be locked down. Then we go off-road. I climbed out, scanning the horizon. The air trembled with heat. On the opposite bank, smoke columns rose from the industrial park. Somewhere behind us, a helicopter roared past, then another, military transport heading east. Not rescue. Evacuation. I turned back to the van. We're not waiting for orders. We keep moving. Find a gap and push through before nightfall. We rejoined the river road heading south. The GPS was useless. Every route flashed red. We passed wrecked vehicles, abandoned checkpoints, a bus still running with its doors open. Inside, shapes moved sluggishly in the shadows. I didn't look twice. Then, out of nowhere, a figure stumbled into the lane. I hit the brakes hard. The van skidded sideways, tires screeching. The man's clothes were shredded, one arm hanging by threads of muscle. He slammed into the hood and rolled off, hitting the pavement with a wet smack. Sienna's breath caught. He's bitten. Stay in the car, I said, opening my door. He twitched on the ground, groaning, hand reaching toward me. His skin was gray around the mouth. The smell hit me next, blood gone sour. Then he moved, faster than he should have. I jumped back, heart hammering, as his jaw snapped open and closed like an animal's. Ramon shouted, "Eli, behind you." Another one was running from the shoulder. Then another. I scrambled back into the van and slammed the door. "Hold on." I gunned the engine and swerved around them, clipping one hard enough to send him spinning off into the ditch. The sound was awful, not just impact, but the way he got up again, still moving, bones bending wrong. We didn't talk for a long time after that. Every mile south felt like we were crossing into another world, one where rules didn't matter anymore. When we finally stopped beneath a burned-out overpass to catch our breath, the sky was turning orange with dusk. Sienna was shaking. Dana stared blankly at the dashboard. The kids were asleep, somehow. Ramon leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "This isn't an outbreak," he said quietly. "It's extinction." I didn't answer him. I couldn't. All I could think was that somewhere, somehow, Lena might still be waiting for me to come home. And I was running out of road. By the time we found the warehouse district, the light was starting to fade. The air shimmered with heat and ash. I could still smell smoke from the bridge hours later, that sickly blend of gasoline, rubber, and something else I didn't want to name. We'd been driving for what felt like forever, following the river south and cutting through side streets when the roads blocked up. Every gas station we passed had the same story: empty pumps, shattered glass, sometimes a body still slumped in the doorway. The kids had stopped crying. That scared me more than the noise. The warehouse came into view just before dusk. A big gray building with Quick Mart distribution painted across its side. My old workplace. The parking lot was mostly clear, a few forklifts left abandoned, doors half open. It looked quiet, too quiet, but it was shelter. "We can hole up here for the night," I said. Ramon frowned. "You sure it's empty?" "No," I admitted. "But it's better than sleeping in the van." We parked near the loading dock. The engine ticked as it cooled, the sound weirdly loud in the silence. I grabbed the wrench and climbed out first, scanning for movement. Nothing. Just the wind stirring a paper bag across the asphalt. Inside, the warehouse smelled of oil, dust, and spoiled fruit. The lights flickered, backup generators still running somewhere deep in the building. Rows of empty shelving stretched into the shadows. My boots echoed as I walked. It hit me then how surreal it was to be back here. I'd spent years loading this place with groceries, complaining about schedules, about how the air conditioning never worked. Now it felt like the last safe corner of the world. Dana brought the kids in, whispering soft promises that everything was okay. Sienna followed, limping slightly but alert, her eyes scanning every aisle. Ramon found a stack of pallets and started building a makeshift barricade near the entrance. For the first time all day we weren't running. That piece lasted maybe 10 minutes. A noise echoed from the far end of the loading bay, metal on concrete, slow and deliberate. I raised my wrench, motioning for everyone to stay quiet. Ramon grabbed a crowbar from the floor. We moved toward the sound, every step heavier than the last. A figure stepped out from between the shelving units, hands up, face drawn but human. "Don't shoot," he said. "We thought you were them." More shadows appeared behind him. 5 people total, armed with pipes and a single shotgun. They looked like they'd been here for days. The one who spoke introduced himself as Malik, former security guard for the warehouse. His shirt still had the company patch. "We've been holding out since the first night," he said. "Lost power this morning. You're the first new faces we've seen. You got supplies?" Ramon asked. Malik's expression darkened. "Not much. And what's left is ours." The air between us tightened. Sienna stepped forward before I could respond. "We're not here to take anything. We just need rest. We have kids." Malik's gaze flicked to the children, then back to me. "You brought them here?" He shook his head. "This place won't stay quiet much longer. The noise, the smell, it draws them." "Then we'll help keep watch," I said. "We can share fuel, water." He looked at me for a long moment, then finally nodded. "One night, then you move on." We settled in among the shelves, taking turns watching the loading bay. For a while, there was a strange kind of calm. Dana fed the kids crackers from one of our boxes. Ramon tinkered with the van's spark plugs, saying he could squeeze more mileage out of it. Sienna sat beside me, cleaning a blood-stained bandage with bottled water. "You ever think," she said quietly, "that everything we built, all the order, all the rules, was this fragile?" "Every day," I said. "Just never thought I'd see it break." A noise interrupted us, a scrape, then a distant moan. The sound of something heavy dragging itself against concrete. Malik cursed and signaled his group. They found us. Within seconds, chaos erupted. Figures pushed through the broken loading doors, not many, but enough. Pale faces, jerky movements, that guttural sound like air moving through ruined throats. We opened fire. Malik's shotgun thundered, echoing through the vast space. Ramon swung his crowbar. I crushed one skull with the wrench. They kept coming. One got hold of a man from Malik's group, pulling him down before anyone could react. The screaming was short, cut off by teeth. "Back!" Malik shouted. "Back to the offices." We retreated, herding the kids through an emergency door. I slammed it shut behind us, locking it with a metal bar. My chest heaved, my arms shaking. Outside, the infected pounded on the metal, relentless. Then silence. We stood there, breathing hard, surrounded by rows of filing cabinets and broken desks. Malik looked at me, sweat dripping down his face. "They'll break through eventually," he said. "And when they do, we're not all getting out." He turned his eyes to the van keys clipped to my belt. "That thing outside yours?" "Yeah." I said that. He stepped closer. "Then you're giving me those keys. My people go first." "The hell they do," Ramon snapped. Malik raised the shotgun. "I'm not asking." The air went still. I could hear my heartbeat, the kids crying softly behind Dana. For the first time since this started, it wasn't the infected I was afraid of. It was the living. He kept the shotgun pointed at my chest, finger resting too easily on the trigger. The buzzing of the flickering light above us filled the silence. Sweat trickled down my temple. I could feel everyone's eyes on me. Dana clutching her kids, Ramon coiled tight beside the door, Sienna's jaw clenched, her hand steady despite the tremor in her voice. "Malik," she said carefully, "we're not your enemy. You'll kill each other and save them the trouble." Malik didn't blink. "There's 6 of us, 4 of you. I'm not letting my people die, because you showed up late to the end of the world." My pulse pounded in my ears. "You pull that trigger," I said, "and we all die anyway." He took a slow step closer. "Keys. Now." I'd been through 100 delivery disputes, arguments over invoices, overloading violations. Nothing prepared me for a man staring down a gun barrel, desperate enough to kill for a running engine and a half tank of gas. Ramon shifted behind me. "You really want to do this?" Malik hesitated. That half second was all Ramon needed. He lunged. The gun went off, deafening in the enclosed space. The blast shredded the doorframe inches from my head. We hit the floor in a tangle, the shotgun skidding across the concrete. One of Malik's people dove for it, but Sienna got there first. She leveled it on instinct. "Stop!" she shouted. "Everybody stop." Breathing hard, Malik froze. The man who'd reached for the gun raised his hands. Ramon pinned Malik's shoulder with his knee, wrench in hand. I took the keys off my belt and held them up. "You want these?" I said. "Take them. But if you leave us here, you won't last an hour. There's a horde outside and no gas station within 10 miles that isn't already picked clean." Malik looked up at me, eyes full of something raw, not hate, not quite fear. "Then what's your plan, driver?" "Wait until the noise draws them away," I said. "Then we move. Together." For a moment, it almost worked. His people relaxed. The tension bled from the air, just enough that I thought we might survive the night. Then a crash echoed from the loading bay, louder than before, metal bending, the sound of dozens of hands pounding on steel. The infected had caught our scent again. The walls vibrated with it. Malik used the distraction to shove Ramon off. He bolted for the door and grabbed the shotgun barrel. Sienna fired, reflex more than aim, the blast catching him across the shoulder. He screamed, dropped the gun, and stumbled backward. "Goddamn it," I hissed. I grabbed the keys, shoved Sienna toward the side exit. "Go! Move!" The pounding grew louder. A hinge snapped somewhere behind us. The kids were screaming now. We pushed through the narrow hallway toward the loading yard, fluorescent lights flickering overhead. The smell of decay hit first. The infection had been here too. I slammed the crash bar on the emergency door. It flew open, spilling us into the night. Heat and dust slammed into my face. The van was 30 feet away, sitting under the dull glow of a flickering lamp. We ran. Ramon reached it first, wrenching the door open and hauling the kids inside. Dana followed, then Sienna. I covered them, scanning the shadows. Behind us, Malik staggered through the doorway, clutching his bleeding arm. He saw me, eyes wild. "Please," he rasped. "Don't leave me." I hesitated. The infected were pouring into the lot behind him. Half a dozen at first, then twice that number. Their eyes caught the light like glass. I could smell them now, that rotten sweetness that turned your stomach. I shouted, "Get in," and fired the engine. The van roared to life. Malik stumbled forward, tripping over debris. The first of the infected tackled him before he reached me. His scream cut through the night as they dragged him down. Sienna covered her mouth, tears streaking her dirt-stained cheeks. We can't save everyone," I said, and slammed the door shut. I floored it, plowing through the chain-link gate. The sound of tearing metal and screaming faded behind us as the city lights thinned into desert dark. No one spoke for miles. The only sound was the hum of the tires and the uneven breathing of the living. I gripped the wheel so tight my hands hurt. When I finally looked down, Malik's blood was on my arm, black in the dashboard light, sticky and half-dried. I wiped it on my jeans, but it didn't come off clean. Sienna stared out the window, voice low and hollow. "He wasn't wrong," she said. "It's not the dead we have to worry about. It's us." Ramon lit a cigarette, the tip glowing red. "If it's us or them, I know which side I'm on." I didn't answer. The road stretched endless and empty ahead, a black ribbon under a dying sky. Somewhere in that dark, the border might still mean something. Maybe not. But right now, it was the only direction left that didn't look like death. And still, I couldn't shake the feeling that Malik's scream was chasing us, echoing in the spaces where the city used to breathe. The desert began swallowing the city by dawn. The buildings thinned, then disappeared entirely, replaced by cracked pavement, scattered billboards, and a horizon that looked too big for the world we used to know. I drove in silence. My hands ached from gripping the wheel all night. The van smelled like gasoline, sweat, and fear. Everyone was quiet. We were all thinking the same thing. There was no going back. The highway signs still pointed south, but most of them were riddled with bullet holes or burned. State Route 10, border 62 miles. I didn't trust the distance. Nothing felt that close anymore. Ramon dozed in the passenger seat, the wrench across his lap like a weapon he didn't want to put down. Dana sat in the back with her kids, their eyes empty from exhaustion. Sienna was awake, watching the dawn crawl across the sand. She hadn't said a word since Malik. The radio crackled occasionally, fragments of voices bleeding through the static. Containment breached in El Paso. Military convoy lost contact near Tucson. Refugee centers at capacity. Then a clearer voice broke through. This is Safe Zone 14, broadcasting on Emergency Band 9. If you can hear this, head south. We have shelter, food, medical aid, and protection. Repeat, Safe Zone 14 is open. It looped twice before fading. Ramon rubbed his eyes. That's near the border, he said. If we can reach it, we might stand a chance. Sienna looked skeptical. You really believe that? How many safe zones you think are left? Doesn't matter, I said. We need somewhere to aim for. I checked the dashboard clock, 8:37 a.m. The van was running on fumes. We'd filled the Laskin hours ago. If the signal was real, we had maybe 50 miles of hope left before the tank ran dry. The road curved through an industrial stretch, rail lines, rusted silos, a half-collapsed warehouse that looked like it hadn't seen business in years. I slowed when I saw the checkpoint ahead. Concrete barriers, a flipped Humvee, and a burned-out sign that read Federal Quarantine Zone. Do not enter. The area was littered with trash, discarded backpacks, empty shell casings. We got out cautiously. The heat hit like a wall. A body lay near the guard post, still strapped with a tactical vest, face unrecognizable. Buzzards circled overhead, lazy and patient. Ramon went to check the Humvee. Empty, he said. Whoever was here left in a hurry. Dana stood by the guard booth, staring at a child's drawing taped to the wall. A stick family under a bright sun. Words scrawled underneath. We're waiting for you, Dad. Sienna found a radio inside the booth. It's dead, she muttered. Battery's shot. She turned to me. You still think Safe Zone 14 exists? I have to, I said. If we stop believing there's something ahead, then what the hell are we driving for? The words tasted hollow even as I said them. A low hum rolled across the valley, a sound I first thought was wind, until the vibration reached my chest. We turned together. Down the highway, a military transport was approaching fast, kicking up dust. Wave them down, Ramon shouted. We stood in the middle of the road, arms raised. The truck slowed, then stopped 100 feet away. Soldiers jumped out, weapons drawn. They looked young, faces raw with fear and sunburn. One called out, You from the quarantine? No, I said. We're civilians. We heard about a safe zone. The soldier hesitated. There's no safe zone. Not anymore. The words hung there like the heat. Sienna stepped forward. What about the broadcast? We just heard it an hour ago. He shook his head. That was automated. Safe Zone 14 fell yesterday morning. Behind him, another soldier whispered something I couldn't hear. The first one's expression shifted, alarm, then dread. He turned toward his driver. We gotta move. Now. Wait. I called out. What's coming? He didn't answer. Just climbed into the truck and slammed the door. The convoy roared away, leaving us choking in their dust. For a long time, none of us moved. The sun climbed higher, burning through the haze. Ramon kicked a rock, his voice tight with anger. We're wasting time chasing ghosts. My family's north. I can't just leave them. Sienna snapped. You go north, you die. You saw what's up there. He glared at her. And you think south is any better? I stepped between them. Enough. We can't split up. Maybe we should, Ramon shot back. 4 people in one van's a death sentence. He wasn't wrong. Supplies were low. Fuel lower. I didn't say it, but I was starting to think the same thing. Before we could argue more, a burst of static came through the van's radio, faint but distinct. Do not approach Safe Zone 14, repeat, do not approach. Then a new voice, hoarse and terrified. They're inside the fences. Everyone's turning. Don't. The transmission ended in a scream. The kids started crying again. Sienna whispered, There's nowhere left. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. Somewhere between the bridge and here, the idea of rescue had died. Then we find our own safe zone, I said quietly. Even if it's just one more mile. As I drove on, the world felt smaller, the silence heavier. Every empty stretch of road looked like a promise waiting to break. We passed a green highway sign half buried in dust. The letters were barely visible, but I could still make them out. Next services 10 miles. I didn't know if it meant gas, food, or a final mistake. But I pressed the accelerator anyway. By the time we spotted the motel, the gas gauge was kissing empty. The road had narrowed to 2 cracked lanes lined with dust and silence. Every few miles we passed abandoned cars, doors open, belongings spilled like people had just stepped out and vanished. The motel sat back from the highway, half hidden behind a rusted sign that used to read Suncrest Lodge. The letters that remained spelled S_C_S_, which somehow felt right. I parked near the front office. A tumbleweed rolled across the lot, the wind whistling through broken windows. There were no bodies, no noise, just the faint rattle of a swinging door. Sienna checked the rear seat. "They're asleep," she said quietly. The kids had finally passed out, curled together under a blanket that smelled of gasoline. Dana leaned against the window, eyes closed but still alert. You could tell by the twitch in her fingers. Ramon climbed out first, wrench in hand, scanning the lot. "You think it's clear?" "Nothing's clear anymore," I said. "But it's shelter." The front office was trashed. Papers scattered everywhere, a coffee mug shattered across the counter. The register drawer hung open, empty. A calendar on the wall still said April 2027, the month the world ended. There was a key rack behind the counter. Most of the tags were gone, but a few still hung in place, 7, 8, and 12. I took them. 3 rooms, I said. "Keep it tight. We barricade after we check everything." Ramon kicked open the door to room 7, sweeping his flashlight across the floor. The smell hit first, rotten mildew but no death. Bed overturned, sheets tangled. No sign of anyone. Room 8 was worse. Blood on the wall. A handprint dragged toward the bathroom. The mirror was cracked, the sink full of brown water. I shut the door without looking closer. Room 12 was at the end of the row. It faced the desert instead of the highway, which somehow felt safer. We pushed inside. It was stale but intact. 2 beds, a dresser, and a TV that hadn't worked since civilization. "This'll do," I said. We blocked the door with a chair and a dresser. Sienna took the first watch, sitting by the window with the shotgun balanced across her knees. Ramon paced for a while, then collapsed on the floor near the door. I stepped outside for air. The night was warm, the kind that used to hum with insects and traffic. Now it was too quiet. Even the wind felt like it was holding its breath. Across the lot, the neon vacancy sign flickered weakly, running on a generator that somehow hadn't died yet. The buzzing of the light was hypnotic. For a moment, I almost forgot what the world had become. Then I heard the noise. Soft. Wet. Somewhere behind the dumpster near the service alley. I raised my flashlight. A shape moved, slow, staggering. My heart clenched. I leveled my gun and took a step closer. "Stop," I called out. The figure froze, then turned. It wasn't one of them. It was a man, mid-30s maybe, in a torn delivery uniform like mine. His face was sunburned, his eyes wild. "Don't shoot," he croaked. "Please." I thought everyone was gone. I lowered the gun. "You alone?" He nodded. "I've been hiding here since it started. Had a route in the city. When it hit, I drove till the tank ran out. Been living off the vending machines ever since." Something about the story rang too familiar. Too easy. "Come inside," I said finally. "We've got people." He hesitated. "I'm not sick. I swear." Inside, the others stirred when I brought him in. The kids clung to Dana. Ramon eyed him suspiciously. Sienna didn't lower the shotgun. He sat on the edge of the bed, rubbing his arms. "You got any water?" I tossed him a bottle. He drank half in one go, then coughed. It wasn't a normal cough. Wet. Deep. Sienna stood. "Eli." "I know," I said quietly. He wiped his mouth, and that's when I saw it, a dark streak at the corner of his lips. Ramon cursed and backed away. He's bit. The man's eyes went wide. No, please. It's just a cut. Then the convulsion hit. His whole body seized, jerking hard enough to knock over the chair. The kid screamed. I drew my sidearm, but my hands shook. The transformation wasn't cinematic. It was slow, horrible, real. His veins darkened, his skin grayed. His breath became a snarl. Dana grabbed the children and ran into the bathroom, slamming the door. Sienna raised the shotgun. Eli! I didn't think. I just pulled the trigger. The sound tore through the room, ringing in my skull. He dropped instantly. For a long time, nobody spoke. Smoke curled from the barrel. The smell of gunpowder mixed with blood and dust. Ramon finally broke the silence. We can't stay here. He was right. The shot would draw attention. I could already hear something shifting outside, faint but getting closer. Sienna met my eyes. We moved before sunrise. I nodded, staring at the body. He looked peaceful now, almost human again. When I stepped outside, the desert wind carried the echo of the shot across the dunes. It sounded like the whole world exhaling in grief. We were gone before the sun fully rose, the motel shrinking in the mirrors until it was nothing but a broken tooth in the desert's jawline. No one talked about the man I'd shot. The smell of gunpowder still clung to my clothes, and every time the van jolted over a crack in the road, I thought I heard the echo of that single blast again. The kids slept fitfully in the back. Dana watched them, her eyes hollow, one hand resting protectively over their legs. Ramon had gone quiet, too quiet, staring out the window, chewing on his lip like he was trying to keep something from coming out. Sienna rode shotgun, one knee drawn up, her gaze fixed on the horizon. The radio sat between us, mostly static. Every few minutes, I turned the knob, hoping for something, music, news, a human voice. Anything. Nothing. Then, around mid-morning, the static broke. Emergency frequency coordinates, survivors. I grabbed the dial, tuning carefully until the voice came through again, male, controlled but exhausted. This is Lieutenant Rourke, U.S. Army. Broadcasting on open frequency 94.2. Any survivors within range? We are regrouping south of Interstate 19, near mile marker 62. If you can hear this, proceed cautiously. We are armed, but we will provide shelter. Sienna's head snapped toward me. Did you hear that? Yeah. Ramon leaned forward. Mile 62. That's not far. We could make it before noon if we don't stop. Unless it's a trap, Sienna said flatly. I kept my eyes on the road. Military distress signals are encrypted. You can't fake that. She gave a bitter laugh. You think the military still cares about protocol? You saw those soldiers yesterday. They're just surviving like the rest of us. She wasn't wrong. But hope, real, tangible hope, was a dangerous thing to ignore. We check it out, I said finally. If it's real, we get food, maybe fuel. If it's not, we keep moving. Nobody argued, but the silence that followed wasn't agreement. It was resignation. The next hour was a blur of cracked asphalt and empty skies. The world felt abandoned by everything that made it human. Billboards advertised fast food and weekend getaways that no longer existed. Somewhere in the distance, a lone column of smoke rose into the sky, black and thick, too steady to be an accident. As we got closer to mile marker 62, the signs of life or death increased. Military tire tracks, scorched roadblocks, a wrecked ambulance lying on its side, the windshield painted brown with dried blood. Dana whispered, "Maybe they didn't make it." Then we saw movement ahead. A Humvee parked diagonally across the highway. Two figures in fatigues stood beside it, waving flashlights in the daylight. Ramon exhaled. "It's them." I slowed the van, window cracked, one hand near the gearshift. The soldiers looked rough, faces streaked with dust, eyes hidden behind dark lenses. One approached as I rolled down the window fully. "Stay calm," he said, voice muffled by a mask. "You're safe now." The words sounded rehearsed. "Lieutenant Rourke?" I asked. He hesitated. "He didn't make it." The other soldier moved behind the van, glancing inside. Dana tensed. Sienna's hand drifted toward her shotgun. "What's your status?" the first soldier asked. "Any injuries, bites, fevers?" "No," I said. "We're clean." He nodded. "There's a base camp 10 minutes south. We're escorting survivors." It should have been comforting. It wasn't. There was something in the way he said escort, too mechanical, too cold. Sienna noticed it too. "How many survivors?" He looked past her. "Enough." That word chilled me. We followed the Humvee anyway. What else could we do? The van trailed behind their vehicle down a side road flanked by mesquite trees and crumbling fences. The air grew thick with heat and the smell of burning oil. The base camp wasn't what I expected. Rows of makeshift tents, some half collapsed. Smoke from burning trash pits. Dozens of people standing in line, not moving, not speaking. Soldiers walked the perimeter with rifles slung low, eyes scanning but not watching. "This doesn't look like a rescue," Sienna muttered. We parked near the edge. The soldier who'd spoken to me earlier approached again. "You'll be processed in that tent," he said, pointing to a medical station. "Medical check, then you'll get food and instructions." "What kind of instructions?" Ramon asked. The soldier didn't answer. We stepped out cautiously. The heat pressed down like a hand. The people in line looked hollow, skin gray with dust, lips cracked. Some stared at nothing. Others clutched empty bottles or stuffed animals. A woman near the front turned, eyes wide, whispering to us as we passed. "Don't stay. They're not helping anyone." Before I could ask, a guard shoved her forward. "Keep moving." Sienna caught my arm. "Eli, this isn't right." I looked at the soldier by the tent. His uniform was spotless, too clean for the dirt and chaos around us. The patch on his sleeve read Rourke. I froze. The same name from the broadcast. He saw me looking and smiled. Not the kind of smile that meant welcome. The kind that said you're next. Every instinct screamed at me. I took a step back toward the van. "We're leaving." Sienna's eyes met mine. She didn't ask why. She just ran. The guards shouted. One raised his rifle. I dove behind the van as bullets shattered the windshield. Dana screamed. Ramon swung open the passenger door, returning fire with Malik's old handgun. The camp exploded into chaos, civilians scattering, soldiers yelling, the illusion of order collapsing in seconds. We hit the gas, plowing through the barricade and into open desert once more. The radio was still on. The same voice came through, calm and clear. "This is Lieutenant Rourke, U.S. Army. Broadcasting on open frequency 94.2. I turned it off. The silence that followed felt worse than the gunfire. The desert had a way of swallowing sound. Even the roar of the engine faded quickly behind us, replaced by the steady hum of heat and the crunch of sand under the tires. The false safe zone was a memory we didn't want but couldn't shake. No one spoke for the first hour. We were all trying to make sense of what we'd just escaped. Not just the soldiers, but the truth that rescue wasn't coming. The air shimmered in the heat. Ahead, the road disappeared into a haze that made the world feel like it was melting. My hands ached from gripping the steering wheel too tightly. Every few miles I'd glance at the side mirror, half expecting to see headlights chasing us. There never were any, just dust. Ramon finally broke the silence. "They were using people," he said quietly. "Those soldiers. You saw the fences. They weren't protecting anyone. They were testing something." Sienna turned from the passenger seat, her voice low but steady. "Testing what?" He hesitated. "The way they watched people, measuring reactions, keeping notes. That wasn't a rescue operation. That was a study." I kept my eyes on the road. Whatever they were studying doesn't matter now. They're gone and we're not. Dana leaned forward from the back seat. "You think they caused it?" I wanted to say no. That it was an accident, something nature had thrown at us, and not the result of another human hand. But I didn't answer. The silence said enough. We drove until the road became gravel, and the gravel turned to dirt. The van rattled and groaned, the engine threatening to give out. Finally, when the fuel light blinked red, I pulled over near an old railway line. The tracks ran straight through the desert, stretching to nowhere. A freight train sat derailed nearby, half buried in sand. Its metal sides shimmered with heat. "We'll stop here," I said. The others got out slowly, blinking against the sunlight. Sienna walked the perimeter, scanning the horizon. Ramon climbed up one of the cars, shading his eyes as he looked west. Dana settled the kids under a scrap of shade from the van, giving them the last bottle of water. I climbed the embankment toward the train. The air smelled of rust and hot metal. The cars were marked with a faded government logo, something about Department of Logistics and Emergency Response. Inside one of the containers, rows of supply crates sat untouched. The labels read emergency rations, federal distribution and medical supplies, authorized transport only. Some of them had been opened, but not looted. It looked like the train had been abandoned mid-run. "Eli," Sienna called, climbing up behind me. "Find something?" I pried open one of the intact crates. Inside, sealed meal packs, bottled water, a few medical kits. For the first time in days, I let myself exhale. "Enough for a week," I said. Ramon jumped down from the roof of another car. "You think this is safe?" "Safe doesn't exist anymore," Sienna said. "But it's quiet. That's enough." We set up camp by the train, using the containers as windbreaks. The kids slept quickly, worn out from the heat. Ramon and I took turns scanning the distance, while Sienna rationed supplies and Dana cleaned the cuts on her hands. When night fell, the stars came out sharp and endless. The world looked cleaner from here, untouched, almost peaceful. It was easy to forget that everything beyond that horizon was gone. Sienna sat beside me, passing a small canteen back and forth. "You think the trains ever made it?" she asked. "Which ones?" "The ones carrying people out of the cities. Evacuations, relocations. Maybe they reached somewhere better." I thought about the signal we'd followed, the soldiers at the false camp, the empty sky. "Maybe," I said. "Or maybe this is it, the end of the line." She nodded slowly. "Then we make it count." A breeze picked up, carrying dust across the tracks. The metal creaked softly, echoing like an old memory. Somewhere out there, the world was still burning, but here, for one night, we were just people under the stars, tired, hungry, but still alive. Ramon hummed quietly to himself, a tune I didn't recognize. Dana rested against the van, holding her children close. In the distance, lightning flashed, silent, far away. The storm would come eventually. It always did. But for now, we had shelter, water, and one another. And in a world built from dust and steel, that felt like more than survival. It felt like the first fragile step toward something that might someday be called hope. Morning came pale and quiet, the light spilling over the horizon like a slow confession. The air had cooled during the night, but the calm didn't feel natural. It was the kind of silence that waits for something to happen. I was the first to wake. The others were scattered across the railcar floor, curled under blankets of old tarp and exhaustion. The wind carried a faint metallic smell. I followed it to the open crate I'd found the night before. Something about the markings on the boxes still bothered me. Federal distribution only, priority medical transport. These weren't ordinary supply crates. Someone had gone through a lot of effort to keep them moving even when everything else had stopped. I pried open another lid. Inside were rows of sealed metal canisters, each labeled with an alphanumeric code and a warning symbol I didn't recognize, something like a triangle with a broken circle inside. No food, no medicine, just silence and the faint hum of something cold. Sienna joined me, rubbing her eyes. "You're up early." "Couldn't sleep," I said. "Look at this." She crouched beside me and traced a finger over the label. "These aren't rations. Not even close. Whatever this train was carrying, it wasn't meant for the public." Ramon's voice echoed from the next car. "Find anything useful?" "Not yet," I called back, closing the crate halfway. "Just metal." He climbed up to us, wiping sweat from his neck. "Then we move on. There's no point digging into ghosts." But Sienna didn't look convinced. "Maybe ghosts are all that's left to talk to." Before I could answer, Dana appeared, the kids still asleep in the van behind her. She looked thinner in the daylight, like the desert had already started erasing her. "We should go soon," she said, "before it gets too hot." "5 minutes," I said, but my attention stayed on the canisters. There was something about them, something that hummed just at the edge of hearing. I lifted one carefully. It was heavier than it looked, colder too, as if it had never been warmed by the sun. There was a metal tag wired to the latch. B-72, field trial shipment. Authorized personnel only. Field trial. The words hit harder than they should have. My mind flicked back to Ramon's theory about the soldiers testing something at the fake safe zone. The fences. The behavior studies. The word trial started to sound like an accusation. Sienna caught my expression. "What?" I shook my head. Maybe this train wasn't trying to escape the outbreak. Maybe it started it. She blinked. "You think they were moving what? Some kind of experiment?" "I don't know," I admitted. "But these crates weren't abandoned. They were left here." Ramon scowled. "You're guessing. You're tired." "Maybe," I said. "But tell me why a government train full of sealed canisters ends up derailed in the middle of nowhere, with food crates thrown in as camouflage." Nobody had an answer. The argument broke when the kids woke, crying for water. Dana knelt beside them, whispering comfort. Sienna closed the crate and stepped back. "Whatever's in there, we can't use it. And we can't carry it. We move on." She was right, but I still felt that cold weight in my hands long after I put the canister back. By noon, we'd loaded what supplies we could into the van. The air shimmered like glass. As we pulled away, I looked back at the derailed train, rusted, silent, half buried in sand. It looked less like a transport and more like a tomb. Ramon muttered, "You're thinking about those crates." "Yeah. Leave it," he said. "You start digging too deep, you'll find something you can't live with. Maybe it's already found us." He didn't answer. He didn't have to. We drove until the tracks vanished behind dunes. The kids slept again, and Dana hummed softly under her breath, some half-remembered lullaby that didn't belong to this world anymore. Sienna stared out the window. If those canisters were part of this, someone has to have known. "Maybe they did," I said. "Maybe they still do. And if we find them?" I glanced at her. "Then they'd better have answers worth dying for." The road curved east, leading toward a cluster of radio towers in the distance. For the first time in days, the faint sound of a signal whispered through the static. It wasn't a voice this time, just a tone, repeating every few seconds. A pulse, like a heartbeat. We followed it. None of us spoke, but the same thought passed between us like a shadow. Whatever waited at the end of that signal, it wasn't salvation. It was the echo of everything we'd been running from. The road narrowed until it stopped pretending to be a road at all. Sand drifted over the faded asphalt, swallowing the lines that once told people where to drive, where to stop, how to live in order. The world didn't believe in order anymore. Ahead, the towers we'd seen that morning rose from the desert. 3 of them, skeletal and rusted, their antennae twisting into the sky like broken fingers. The faint pulse we'd followed all day came from somewhere inside that cluster. A single tone, repeating every 3 seconds. Beep. 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 I killed the engine. The silence afterward was almost violent. The van ticked as it cooled. Nobody moved at first. Sienna finally said, "This is it." Dana adjusted her children's blanket, eyes darting between us and the towers. "What if it's another trap?" "Then we'll do what we've always done," I said quietly. "We'll survive it." Ramon grabbed the wrench from the floor and opened his door. "Let's finish this." We walked together through the sand. The wind carried dust that clung to our faces, turned sweat to mud. The closer we got, the clearer the sound became, mechanical, steady, not human. It was the heartbeat of something left behind. The building beneath the towers was small, barely more than a bunker. The door hung half open, sunlight cutting a sharp line through the dark interior. I stepped inside first. The air was cooler, still heavy with the metallic scent of age. Banks of old equipment lined the walls. Transmitters, monitors, a flickering generator. One screen still glowed, displaying a map with scattered red dots pulsing faintly. Sienna leaned closer. "Are those infection zones?" I nodded slowly. If this map's accurate, it's not just here. It's everywhere. The red pulses covered the continents like spilled ink. Dana whispered, "There's no safe place left." Ramon stared at the map, his voice cracking. "Then why keep the signal running?" "That's what I want to know." We followed the tone to its source, a small console at the back of the room. The beeping came from a single module no bigger than a shoebox, lights still blinking. A hard drive was attached, labeled in faded letters. Project Lineage, do not disconnect. Sienna ran her fingers over the edge of the console. "Lineage," she said softly. "It's not about saving people. It's about tracing them." The realization landed like a weight between us. This wasn't a distress beacon. It was a record, something designed to keep running, no matter who lived or died. Ramon backed away, shaking his head. "We shut it down." Sienna looked at me. "If we do, we erase whatever's left of the truth." "Truth doesn't matter if it kills us," Ramon snapped. I stood between them, staring at the blinking light. Every choice we'd made since the first day had been about survival. Move, hide, keep breathing. But this was something different. A choice about what kind of world would exist when the surviving was over. "If we leave it running," I said, "someone might find it. Maybe use it to fix what's left." Sienna crossed her arms. "Or they use it to start again, the same way it started before." Dana's voice broke through, tired but clear. "Then maybe it's not about them. Maybe it's about what we do now." I reached for the switch. My hand hovered there, shaking slightly. "Once we cross this line," I said, "there's no going back." Sienna stepped beside me. "There's nothing to go back to." We shut it down together. The tone stopped mid-beep, leaving a silence so deep it felt alive. The hum of the generator faded, and for the first time in weeks, I couldn't hear anything. No radio static, no gunfire, no screaming. Just wind, and the sound of my own heartbeat. Ramon sighed. "Now what?" "Now," I said, turning toward the doorway where sunlight spilled across the floor. "We start over. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere that doesn't remember what happened here." Outside, the sky had begun to turn gold. The towers stood motionless, casting long shadows across the desert. The van waited where we'd left it, looking smaller than ever against the horizon. As we walked back, the kids ran ahead, laughing softly at something only they could see. A lizard darting through the sand, maybe, or the way the wind made their footprints vanish behind them. Sienna fell and stepped beside me. "You think we did the right thing?" "I think," I said after a long pause, "that for once we didn't do the easy thing." She smiled faintly. "That'll have to be enough." We reached the van and climbed in. I started the engine. It coughed once, then caught, steady and strong. I looked back at the towers one last time, already half swallowed by dust. For the first time since the outbreak began, the world felt quiet, fragile, yes, but breathing. I shifted into gear, the wheels cutting new tracks through the sand. The horizon shimmered ahead of us, wide and uncertain. Behind us, the old world lay buried. Ahead, just the open road. And somewhere within that silence, the faint echo of something that might someday be called hope.